a new lesson, but still, we're still dealing with angles. These are the angles that I want to expect you to memorize from here until the end of the year, because we're going to definitely hear a lot about these things, especially these. These here, I expect you to know from elementary or middle school. So let's begin. Let's start off with vertical angles. These are the easiest ones. I think they're easy ones. Okay? They're two angles that are across from each other. They're formed by intersecting lines. They're typically formed by an X. And they will always be congruent. Always. So if you have two intersecting lines, this angle and this guy will always be the same, no matter what, which means if they're the same, then that means that this angle right here is going to be the same as this angle right here. Always. Do not forget that. Adjacent angles. What does adjacent mean? Adjacent means next to. Okay? So this adjacent angles means that they are right next to each other. They share a common side. Linear pair. I went over adjacent because you need to know that before I talked about linear pair. What a linear pair of angles, what happens is they create, first of all, they're two angles that are right next to each other, but what they do is they create a straight line. Straight line or straight angle. The two angles will be supplementary, which means they both will add up to 180 degrees. Okay, this is very important. If I tell you you have a linear pair of angles, that means they're right next to each other. That also means that they're going to add up to 180 degrees. You need to start memorizing this and learning this. So, I guess I'll start off with supplementary first. Supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. Here's an example, 135 and 45. Add both of those together and you will get 180 degrees. Now here are the other ones, complementary angles. These are any two angles that add up to 90 degrees. It doesn't matter. It can be 45 plus 45. That means that the ray that's cutting that angle in half is an angle bisector, so you get 90 degrees. Or it can be like 25 plus 65. Or it can be 10 plus 80. They all equal 90. They are all complementary angles. Alright, so for this one they kind of want you to use the definitions or the descriptions that I just went over to kind of classify the angles that they're giving you. So right here they're giving you angle 1 and 2. So they're right across from each other, so I already know they're vertical. They're not next to each other, so they're not adjacent. I don't know if they add up to 190. To 90 degrees. I don't know if they add up to 180. I definitely know they're not next to each other. They're across, so they're not a linear pair. If I look at number 2, here is the box. That means that this side has to also be 90 degrees. So I know for sure they're complementary. they're right next to each other, so they're adjacent. They're not across. They don't add up to 180, and they don't. So if they're not supplementary, they're definitely not a linear pair. If you look at number 3, well, this is a straight line, which means that this angle and this angle stuck together, well, they're definitely going to be supplementary, because a straight line is 180 degrees. They're also a linear pair because they're right next to each other and they add up to 180. They're definitely not complementary. They're not across, but they are next to each other. 1 and 2, they're adjacent, next to each other. They're not vertical. There's not information to call them complementary because I don't know if they're 90. Definitely not 180 degrees or linear pair. For number 5, 1 and 2. Okay, so it's saying that this one and this one are equal to each other, but we're comparing these two. These two are right across from each other, so they're vertical. If this one and this one are equal, which means they add up to 90 degrees, then that means that this one also adds up to 90 degrees. So they are complementary, they're not supplementary, they're not a linear pair, and they're not adjacent. Alright, not adjacent, that's for sure. Definitely vertical. This is 90 degrees, which means this is 90 degrees, so only one of them is 90. That means if I add both of them, they're going to be more, so they're not complementary, but since this is 90, this has to be 90, so this one has to be 90, so they are definitely supplementary. They're not a linear pair because they are not adjacent. And that's how you use the classification. Alright, angle relationships to find angle measures. So always target where the question is. Is it a variable that we're missing? Is it an angle that they're asking for? That's where you're going to target, and you're going to see what angles are around to classify. Vertical, complementary, supplementary, a linear or straight. Okay? So for number 1, it's pretty easy. Number 1, you have 112, and right across them you have the variable x. So I'm thinking they want to know what x is. Well, guess what? These two are right across from each other, vertical angles, and if you look at the definition, they are congruent. Those are the easiest ones. So x is 112. For number 2, I notice we have the little box here. That's 90 degrees. If this is 68, and that's my missing angle, then I know that both of them together have to equal 90. So this is 90 minus 68, which ends up being x is equal to 22. They're doing the same thing for number 3. This is a straight angle, 180 degrees. From here to that ray, it's 124. This is the piece that's missing. So guess what? We're going to do 180 minus 124, which ends up being x is equal to 56. That's all I did. Recognize the supplementary angles, recognize the complementary angles, recognize vertical angles. So let's go into something a little bit more complicated. Let's go something easy. Let's go easy, number 4, and then we'll jump into 7. Alright, so number 4, super easy. Find all the missing variables. They give me, this is 43. So I'm going to shoot off, super easy. What's the easiest angle to describe? Well, it's the one right across him. Because the one right across him ends up being vertical. Vertical angles are congruent. That means they're equal. So I already know y equals 43. Well, if this is 43, this is a straight line. From here to here will have to be 180 degrees. If I want to know x, then I'm just going to take away 43. And that ends up being 100, let's see, 7, I think. So x is equal to 137. X is right across from z, so guess what? Z has to be also 137. Easy problems. Alright, let's go to number 7. Here we have the description. A and B are complementary. If the measure of A is 42 degrees, what is the measure of B? Well, right off the bat, if they are complementary, that means they add up to 90 degrees. And if angle A is 42 degrees, that means that angle B has to be 38. Alright, let's use algebra now. Let's do let's go 12, let's go difficult. Alright. K and M. This angle right here is 8x minus 5. Then M and J this guy is 4x minus 19. They want us to find out what this angle is. Well, it's not that hard, I guess. Well, we know that this one right here is 4x minus 19. We know this one right here is 8x minus 5. Well, guess what? This is a straight line, which means that all of it right there equals 180. That means that if I add those two together, I should get that. So we have, and let me erase the 180 so you don't get confused, we have 8x minus 5 plus 4x minus 19 equals 180. We're going to combine those two and we'll have 12x. We're going to combine those two, the minus 5 and the minus 19. We're going to have minus 24 equals 180. So now we're going to move that minus 24 by adding 24 to both sides, right? So we're going to do 24 plus 180. So this gives me 12x is equal to 204. Then we divide by 12, divide by 12, x is equal to 17. Well, they don't want x, they want k and m, which means we're going to have to substitute k and m ends up being 8x minus 5. That's 8 times 12 minus 5, which is 96 minus 5, 91. That is your answer. Algebra is going to be the downfall. If you don't know it, please get with me or get more practice. Alright, so we turned the page on the last page of our lesson. A lot of this stuff is how well can you translate the definitions. So if you hear bisect, you already know things are being cut in perfect halves. Things are going to equal to each other. So you're going to look at expressions that equal to each other to solve for x. And then you'll either, if that is the question, solve for x, then great, you're done. But always look at the question, and if it asks you, oh no, give me angle so and so, you're going to have to substitute your value of x. So let's try let's do number 19. MO bisects PMN. So that means that these two angles right here are equal to each other. The entire PMN, all of it equals 74. OMN is equal to 2x plus 7. So we're looking at OMN, this is 2x plus 7. Find the value of x. Well, I was told the whole thing here equals 74. I was also told that this guy right here cuts it in half, perfect half. That means that no longer am I going to worry about 74, okay, but if I cut 74 in half, that means that this is 37 and this is 37. This guy also is equal to 2x plus 7. These two equal each other. So I can solve for x by doing this. Move him across, so I have 2x is equal to 30, x is equal to 15. And, well, that's all they want. But this is what helped me. You have to be able to see this. MO bisects that big angle. They tell you what the big angle is. And then they only give you one of the little angles. They're expecting you to go back and go, okay, so if the whole thing's 74, then these two pieces are equal to each other, 37 and 37. Let's look at, well, we can stop there, I guess, and then we can do the rest in class.